Whoa.
Canadian wine lovers, Carl's Wine Club members, Mira Boucher, everyone across the country, good evening, bonsoir, ça fait plaisir de vous avoir, toute la gang en français, en anglais, tous nos amateurs de vin francophones, un beau jeudi soir, happy Thursday, this is a special night, this is really, really exciting because we have a very special edition of Taste of Times. Hey?
Yeah. So what we're doing, I mean, maybe take us back, Carl. How did we get this idea? We asked you guys actually in our VIP group. We were like, guys,
do you have your microphone a little louder?
No.
No? Okay, that's mine here. Okay, I got mine higher. Okay, here. Good.
So we were like, what are the biggest myths when it comes to Canadian wine? And we heard from the converted. Okay, I know that I'm preaching to the choir for most people that are stopping by, but we heard things like, oh, so many wine lovers think that you can't ripen Canadian wines properly. Or they think that you can't age Canadian wines for a long time, not as long as maybe some international counterparts. Or the third myth we hear is so you can't ripen them, you can't age them. And then we hear they're way overpriced. I can get a better deal from Chile or from France or from this place or from that place. So these are all myths because we taste thousands of wines, over 1,200 Canadian wines every year. Carl's been in international wines for over 20 years, working exclusively with those wines. And we see that just like any wine region, you have to know where to look. You have to know which producers to watch for. There's going to be better value and worse value. But we see extremely amazing potential and extremely amazing wines already being produced over the last 20, 30, 40 years. So what are we going to do today, Carl? We're going to debunk one of those three myths, aren't we?
Absolutely. We're going to taste, and sorry for quitting for 1 minute here. So we're going to taste some amazing aged Canadian wines for the first time. Because these wines are going to be on the lineup at this very iconic tasting that we're putting together in Toronto at the Vintage Conservatory in collaboration with l'Académie du Vin and Marc Nadeau. So we have 10 Canadian wines that I have carefully selected for the last, 3 months I've been working on it. And today we're doing the pre-tasting because guess what? I'm going to do the presentation of these wines in Toronto. So I need to know the profile and where these wines are on their aging curve. And tonight is the night. And instead of doing it in the office downstairs with a notepad, you have decided to say, hey, how about you go live so everyone can watch and everyone can be part of it. And I was like, wow, this is fantastic. Now we came up with the idea to invite these winemakers to talk about their own wine that they made back in the day, because we have wines going back all the way to 2006 on that lineup. So buckle your seatbelt. We are up for a pretty cool ride tonight. It's going to be rapid fire because we have six or seven winemakers coming up with us live. We have a couple of recordings that we've done during the day, but we're going to taste 9 of the 10 wines. Unfortunately, one of the wine didn't make it on time to the office, so the 2013 Hidden Bench is not tasted tonight. But first, we have 1 sparkling, 2 white, and 6 reds to taste tonight. 2 Pinots, 1 from Ontario, 1 from BC. We have Merlot, Cap Franc, Red Blend, and Syrah, and also an outstanding Blanc de Blanc, sparkling, traditional method from Nova Scotia. So we're going to share with these winemakers what was the philosophy and the strategy, and what can we expect in our glass with these wines. And guess what? I'm going to be the judge. I'm going to be right here to let you know if it's at the level that we are hoping and expecting. Daryl, good evening, my man. Live from Ontario, it's Daryl here. He said, sadly, nothing in the glass tonight. Wish I had Nova Scotia sparkling in my glass.
Yes.
Daryl, look at that beauty here. We have Benjamin Bridge, Blanc de Blanc, Découpement Parcellaire here. So, and Jean-Benoit Delaurier, the winemaker, is going to be joining us in a few minutes time to talk about that. But this is exciting because, like Mira mentioned, for 20 years I was in the international wine business tasting these iconic wines. I've tasted some of the 1945 Bordeaux, some of the 51 Bordeaux, all of these iconic vintage Bordeaux, Burgundy, Super Tuscan, Northern Rhone Syrahs, all the way back to the 60s. I had the privilege to taste some Priorat all the way back to the 70s. So we know how these iconic world class are aging, but now it's time to show the world what we do here in Canada. What have we learned from the old world tradition to build our winemaking technique, our philosophy, and to show Canadian that, yes, we can age our wine because we have an outstanding terroir. And it's something we have that not a ton of region has. It's cold nights. So our level of acidity that we have, especially here in BC, it's outstanding, and also in Ontario. So we have some special terroir. We have some key component of ageability that we have in our natural environment. And now we have some bottle back of 2006, so we're going to see where the wine are in their drinking curve. So it's pretty exciting.
Very exciting. Very, very exciting. So this bad boy is first. I can't wait. Are
There
you going
you
to pop
go.
it now? Are you going to pop it now?
Okay. How about we do that? So
Yes. So we
2000
have, I mean, go ahead.
Well, I'm just thinking that this wine is not necessarily a wine that one of the oldest in the Benjamin Bridge portfolio, but it's a very special one.
Very.
So when I've talked with Jean-Benoit Delaurier, the winemaker, I told him about the project in Toronto. He said, Carl, you know what? There's some older wine in our portfolio, but I believe that this one, the Découpement Parcellaire 2017, it's one of the most special that I've made. And that's the one that I would like you to put side by side with these international icons, because we're going to have a very unique Blanc de Blanc from Franciacorta, a Italian traditional method in the tasting in Toronto. And Jean-Benoit was very proud and very excited to have the Découpement Parcellaire 2017 in the lineup. And guess what? I haven't had any Benjamin Bridge in a long time. I would say last time we were in Calgary, so it might be 10 years now. So Nova Scotia at its best here, 100% Chardonnay. So here you go. Let's do this. It's a start, Canadian wine lovers. It's a start.
Amazing. It looks so good. And guess what? I have good news. Jean-Benoit is actually in the green room already. So perfect timing. I mean, we just popped your bubbly, Jean-Benoit. We're so excited to taste it. Maybe I can bring him on and I'll come upstairs and get a drink from you.
And you make sure you bring a glass, okay? Because I have a bunch of glasses up here, but they're all full. So nothing available, okay? So bring your glass up here.
Don't worry.
And bring JB
Delaurier from Nova Scotia is joining us here live. Jean-Benoit, it's so nice to meet you.
Hi to you both. How are you doing?
They're doing fantastic. Hey, bonsoir, mon cher ami. Ça fait plaisir de te recevoir. Hey, it's late. You're a late owl, for God's sake. We're 4-hour difference here.
It is. Do you remember growing up when all the television programs would 1 hour and the marathon? Well, it is 9:15, and indeed, I'm I'm not a night owl. I go to bed pretty early. So, um, Carl, we're gonna have a contest. Which one of us has the thicker French accent?
You know what? I mean, I left my hometown of Chicoutimi, early 2000. I spent many years with the redneck of Alberta, and all due respect with all my friends back in Calgary, they worked on smoothing up my accent on a daily basis. Where's where's the hometown for you, Jean-Benoit?
I was born in Shawinigan, but
Okay.
grew up in Montreal. So in Verdun, Ville-la-Salle, and on the South Shore as well. So, but
Good.
I left Quebec. I left Quebec in the early 2000s to go to California. I worked in Santa Barbara County for several years. I worked in Chile in the early 2000s as well, and I've been in Nova Scotia since 2007. So it's been 17 years.
It's been a ride, my friend. It's been a ride. Who did you work with back in California?
I was in Ojai, and so I was working mostly with Pinot Noir from the Center Hills. So the Central Coast scene there, like close to Santa Barbara. So
There you go. There you go. So I want to okay. Let's dig in right away. I want to jump in when I got a phone. We had our first phone call maybe 6 weeks ago, and I was talking with about the underwater quest project 2011 vintage. You say, Carl, this is a great wine. I love that, but if we do that, I would love for you to taste the 2017 Découpement Parcellaire. So, what I need to know, what makes this wine so special for you?
well, there are two things. First, I would say that 2016 and 2017 are these pivotal vintages where we started seeing a little bit more heat units, and you can see it in the profile of the wine, the degree of richness, a wine that's really profound, but that also combines the extraordinary freshness, brightness, and energy that comes from our tidal ecosystem. So in Nova Scotia, well, in the Gaspro Valley, what's really is that our environment is essentially the byproduct of the uniqueness of the Bay of Fundy. So there's more water going through the Bay of Fundy on a daily basis than all the fresh water rivers of the world combined. So that tidal turmoil creates an ecosystem that's unlike any other that can really stretch the growing season. And for traditional method sparkling, that's a match made in heaven because there lies the potential to really combine freshness and richness. And for so many wines, there's a bit of a choice, to be made between one or the other. Like you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's going to be rich and full or, kind of crisp. But the great traditional method sparklings of the world, the great champagnes, have possibly like the great Chablis as well, kind of this ability to be both extremely rich, extremely profound, and yet have an extraordinary degree of energy and brightness and something
And precision. I mean, that's why I'm feeling right now. It's that pinpoint precision where like things goes like laser focus, but outside of that, there's a creaminess,
right.
a body, but not heavy body, light on its feet, but rich in flavors.
That's right, and it's this
Oh wow!
very difficult kind of like difficult to achieve ethereal quality that these wines can have, and it's essentially having your cake and eating it too. It's combining qualities that are not always complementary.
It's often an either or, right? You either laser focused, you're either rich and bold, but bold is not the right term. I think it's rich in flavor. That's what I'm getting, and that's that salty minerality, that beautiful saltiness on the upper lip after you swirl it profoundly. Oh my God, there's such a nice depth in that wine.
Yeah. And this, I mean, as you know, all the the fascinating wines on the face of the planet have one thing in common. They have one common denominator, which means that there's always this connection to place, and like greatness, like is always connected to the vineyard. There's no exception to that rule, I don't think. And in this particular case, what's happening is, especially with the climatic changes, like in recent years, the harvest dates for traditional method sparkling have become more and more premature on a planetary level. And Nova Scotia, you still have, because of the extraordinary moderating effect of the Bay of Fundy and its tides going up and down the day and acting as an air pump and pushing this incredible amount of tidal air through our vineyard, it allows us to pick literally 2.5 later than traditional method sparkling harvests in California. And
Oh wow.
it is within that elongation of the growing season, that additional hang time, that phenolic ripeness can be found, and it is there that you can combine these extraordinary texture that are fully ripe and rich and profound, but with an acidity that is also preserved unspoiled. And that is why we feel like our ecosystem, again, is a bit of a match made in heaven for traditional method sparkling.
Wow. And when you're talking about 2017 vintage, Jean-Benoit, picking dates is around what, late, like what, mid-September? That's where you're at?
No, this elongation that I speak of is such that we pick for traditional sparkling, meaning at low sugar content, high acidity, in mid to late October.
What?
Yes,
Holy crap.
that's really the key. That's the magic. That's the zone where, if you have the type of climatic circumstances, and they are very rare, it's very difficult to find an ecosystem like this and a microclimate like this on the planet. But if you do, and you're able to pick as late as possible, yet at moderate sugar content, that is that there lies the magic.
I mean, Champagne region are picking in August now. I mean, wow, a month and a half later. Well, and yeah, that the development of flavor goes from green apple to bust to pear, but also some pineapple come up, going down it's amazing. Wow. Okay. How many cases of the découpement parcellaire have you made in 2017?
Well, that was just a small cuvee. We didn't make that much of it. Actually, what we did is, and what the découpement parcellaire means, essentially, it would be almost a synonym of a viticultural subdivision. So what we did is we noticed that there was a portion block of Chardonnay that had significantly lower yields, and the reason why the correlation between lower yields and extraordinary outcomes is because when there's very little berries on the vine then has the ability to give all of its energy to these limited berries, all the energy that it has from photosynthesis and from the root system. And so that would be the opposite of, like a vine that would have a lot of fruit and therefore kind of a corresponding sense of dilution. So we noticed that there was a section where the yields were naturally much lower, and so we decided to isolate it, thus the découpement, the subdividing, and we made a special wine out of it, and we thought that you would enjoy it. So.
Oh my God. Oh my God. This is absolutely spectacular. No doubt. I've tasted a few great traditional methods this year, but nothing, absolutely nothing at this very level. The precision, the flavors, definition, but with the richness and the whole 9 yards. And there's a minerality in there that absolutely like bring me to the ocean. It's incredible. Mira's now, she's sick. She's like, enough of talking. She's up here now. And
I am
here
here.
you go. So 100% Chardonnay. It's a Blanc de Blanc, so you're at 100% Chard.
Correct. Also, maybe within the of that wine, it would be really important to mention that it's a wine that we made with the help and some of the really precious insight. A good friend who consulted with us. His name is Pascal Agrapar, and from Agrapar Père et Fils in Avize in Champagne.
Okay, yes.
And so he was an active participant in the making of that wine as well. So I don't know if there are champagne. Well, I'm assuming there are champagne aficionados like in your audience, and if they are familiar with his work as a récoltant manipulant. So he was one of the maybe alongside Anselme Solas, like a very pivotal figure in the grower champagne movement. So.
Wow, it's absolutely spectacular. Listen, Jean-Benoit, I can do that for another 2.5 hours. I'm going to get in real trouble because I have 7 other people joining me. But you know what, Mira, can you cancel the whole thing? Like, I'm done for the night. That's it. I'm done for the night.
Okay.
This is incredible.
I have to say something. I have to say 2 things, okay? Jean-Benoit, we got to have you back on the show as soon as you can. It's going to be a blast. 3 things, okay? The second thing is we got to come see you because I am dying to get to Nova Scotia. Members, you guys, let's make a big trip out there. I think it's really going to be worth our while. And my third thing is that, holy smokes, I've had one taste of this. I can still taste it. So it is a very long finish. And I got to say something. I have tasted with Carl a few thousand wines from Canada the last few years. But I'm a relatively untrained palate. I knew nothing about wine when the pandemic started. I knew my husband did something with wine. I didn't know exactly. I didn't drink wine. I didn't know. But now I've tasted a few thousand Canadian wines. I have never had a certain sensation on my tongue that I get from this wine. It went under the tongue, around the back, like beautiful. And in this gorgeous way. Like, it's not like it was in any way intrusive, so I have to say it's an incredible wine.
One more detail, Jean-Benoit. Lease, how much time on lease here before release?
A solid 4 years in this part.
So just recently released, very recently. Yeah, the creaminess is fantastic. Is any part of that was aged a little bit in barrel, or?
Yeah, all aged in 600-liter French barrel, neutral oak, really important.
Yeah.
So no toast really coming from the oak barrel, mostly contribution from the porosity in the wood, so a certain kind of softening of the edges, and so that's looking for a textural contribution from oak. Full malolactic fermentation, but I know you've got so many other fantastic contributors, and I don't want to take anyone's time.
I mean, you know what? It's the wine of the night. Hey, this is 95.
Oh my God, it's incredible.
This is 95 points. In my book, this is 95 points or better. This is one of the top 1% of the wine that I taste on a yearly basis. Top 1% here. Incredible. I have goosebumps. Literally, it's incredible.
I just took my 3rd sip, and I am already starting to ration my glass. I'm already starting to think, oh my God, I don't want it to end. It's incredible. It's incredible. Thank you so much,
Un gros merci, mon ami. Ça fait plaisir de voir. Merci beaucoup. C'est incroyable. let's get together again. We need to geek out on something else.
I'm looking to both in June. I'll be coming. So
Yes, yeah, that's true. I forgot about that.
Oh,
Yes, he's
mind
coming.
blown. Yes. And a couple other people joining us tonight, including Ilya Senchuk, who is now in the green room, is going to be joining us. Maybe we'll bring him in at the same time. You guys, I don't know if you've met Ilya. We're going to bring you on. This is Ilya Senchuk from Leaning Post Wine in Niagara.
Hey, everybody. How are you doing? I do know Jean Benoit.
Okay.
How are you doing?
many times actually, we ate some crab together at Fogo Island Inn in the special room where he was doing a winemakers dinner right on the Atlantic Ocean land. We spent some quality time there a few years ago.
That's right. Yeah,
Wow.
that's where we first met. So kind of a sort of a proto pan-Canadian like winemakers dinner all the way in Fogo. Yeah, so we spent kind of a weekend with Jean Benoit and actually what's his name, Dave from Tantalus as well. So kind of a
Okay.
yeah. So it was a lot of fun.
I was with Dave last week. I spent time with Dave last week. So
that is going to be spectacular in June.
Oh my God.
And you guys will be together again, along with 10 now other winemakers from across the country. Holy cow. Can't wait. Jean Benoit, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Now it's 10 p.m. there or something. So we'll let you go.
But thanks for having me, and have a wonderful night.
I'll see you in June, my friend. Thanks a million.
So much.
Oh, great to see you, Jean Benoit.
Wow.
Yes.
Holy
Wow.
crap. This is a life-changing sparkling wine. Holy crap. That's incredible. I have goosebumps. It doesn't go away. It's going to make me, I feel uncomfortable right now. Come on.
This
is freaking awesome.
That up, but I'll do my best.
Oh, I know. You know what, Ilya? I have a full belief on that, on what's in the bottle. But good evening. It's great to see you. How was New York? How was New York City?
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So much fun. Yeah, Nadia and I were there, again, flying the flag for wine generally. So yeah, again, coast to coast. A lot of great people. People just honestly, legitimately, I think people could not believe what we're putting out from this country, and it was really spectacular. And each kind of part of the country is now starting to develop a bit of an identity, but just more importantly, like quality is there, and everybody is looking for wines that are just naturally bright and fresh and not too heavy, real acid, all the things, like all the trendy stuff from hot parts of the world. They're just trying to do what we already do in Canada, just naturally. So that's probably the neatest thing. Everybody's kind of saying they're just like so on trend, as if we could do something else. Canadian wine is that by definition, kind of, right? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And is it on point to say the consumer are looking for something different now? I mean, I think we're done the time of the Rombauer of the world, and all the respect. I mean, this type of Chardonnay puts Chardonnay on the map in North America, and thank you. But now I really think that consumer behavior have switched. Truly.
Oh, completely. And I'll tell you what, I mean, just generally, I mean, it happens to us all. After you have a few bottles and a few glasses in over years, you just want all that flavor, but maybe you don't want all that alcohol. Maybe you don't want just like super heaviness, right? But you don't want to really sacrifice all the other things. And as I was saying, this is what we do in all of the regions of Canada. Well, we can't really help it. We're not going to be doing these massive wines. Like, that's just not our thing. Even the warmest parts of Canada are kind of like mid warmth for the world, right? We're not some kind of Mediterranean climate. So everything we put out is pretty great and balanced. So I think. So,
yeah, I mean, and you experience it live, like with all of these people from across the country last week, and you see it from our neighbor here in BC. You see some people from Vancouver Island, all the way across the country, and I agree with you, and that's why the excitement for the Pan-Canadian is just growing and growing. And when I connected with Jean Benoit a month ago, he's like, you know what? I'm coming. I'm like, what?
That's
Holy
awesome.
shit. Wow. So no, it's
Love
going to be it's going to be something special. So let's get to what we're talking tonight. And so you're going to be present. You're going to be one of the two winemaker present at the Vintage Conservatory in Toronto on the 25th. Richard De Silva, who's going to be here in like half an hour, is coming here live. Richard is flying. You're going to be there. We're going to talk about that 2012 Laurie Vineyard from you guys at Leaning Post. Back in 2012, how long have you been in business with your own label back then?
So that is, let's see, 1, 2. That's like the third vintage of the label at all. And Nadia and I had owned our farm for a year.
Okay.
We had not even opened our doors to the public. So we were basically, that's why I kind of like pouring some of these wines, because quite literally it was like 200 cases of Pinot to like some friends that I knew in restaurants in Toronto. And we didn't have like a tasting room. The barn was definitely a work in progress. The vineyard was planted in 2012, like our vineyard on our site. So this is really, really early days. But that's why I love pouring these things, because, you know, sort of all of us who started in, 10, 12 years ago, we knew the quality was there. Now we've sort of got a little bit of proof, right? Like you sort of like, it's really hard to like tell everybody, it's going to be great in the future. Now we can really point to these things and say, look, now 10 years later, we can pour these wines now and really show you like, and this is just a great example. I was looking for kind of a great vintage. I think this one kind of speaks to everything that's great about Niagara. Like I think 2012 is a great example of a Niagara vintage because it's not over the top, but it's ripe and beautiful and like balanced and a whole bunch of things. So
at the very early stage, how did you get your hands on Laurie fruits?
So I went to school with Wes Lowry.
Here you go.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I did. I mean, I was a winemaker for about 10 years. In Niagara before I started my own project. So I spent 10 years making wine for other people. So through that, I knew a fair number of grape growers and winemakers. And then when I was starting my own project, I got a hold of Lowry Pinot, and I got a hold of actually Wismer Foxcroft Riesling. So those were my first two wines. And I was able to do that because I already kind of knew people for almost a decade. So it was a little bit easier on that side. So what Nadia and I always joke, like what we lacked in budget, we made up in like passion and people we knew.
Exactly. I mean, personal connection, that's what gets you to a certain level in business. That is for sure. And that's the perfect example, because now when we talk about Laurie, that's funny because last week we were talking with Thomas Batchelder, and Thomas has a small production of Laurie as well, and it was on our feature, and I was asking him about what does it mean to Batchelder's portfolio, and like he explained, like it's the very last vineyard in the far east, right? Yeah, exactly, and it's a very special plot of land. So for you to have your hands on some Laurie fruit from the very beginning, it's pretty special. Do you still produce Laurie at this time?
So our last vintage was 2019. So we have a little bit of that vintage left, like literally like about 25 cases. That's going to be it for us for a little bit. So we'll see if that comes back in the future. We actually have another St. David's vineyard coming into our portfolio. We released it just this last year called Bach. And they're another like 2 kilometers even further east.
Oh, wow.
It's still in St. David's Bench. So it's crazy. So the reason I like showing those two is like our winery, for those who are watching who don't know, our winery is like
at the opposite
West End. Like, like we're, I don't know, 1.5K from where Niagara starts at the West End. And these wines are from the very, very other end, the complete opposite end. So it is like about 40K or 45K maybe from end to end. But it's one of the reasons I love it, because it's so, so different from our farm. Like in all aspects, from the season to the weight to the way it acts. But what I love about it is, although it's kind of a weird, kind of warm-ish area, for some reason, Pinot, I think it's because of the soil. Like they have these beautiful like clay and rich soils. You get these great wines that are really like what we were talking about before, like dense, but never heavy, but like all flavor, right? And all like and tons of, again, I'll use my word, like pinosity. It's not a real thing, but but you know what I mean? Like it has all of that, like this right here, like 2012, still in great shape, right? I mean, it's a 12-year-old wine. It's still pretty fresh, weirdly. Like it has lots of fruit, right? Like lots of freshness. But then you get all those like leafy, earthy, leathery, dirty kind of flavors.
A little bit of mushroom, right? That
Right,
mushroom
yeah,
is there, but the leather you just mentioned, that's what strikes to me with this one. Leathery, a little bit of cedar box as well.
Yeah, totally.
But there's a line of a charcoal kind of like minerality feeling.
Yeah, well, the neatest thing is that is, I think, what separates really great Niagara wine from a lot of other regions, even in the world, because not every part of the world gets that sort of like real, like gravelly, chalky thing. Pretty much any good part of Niagara, like as soon as the soil, like there's limestone everywhere in Niagara, it's just how close it is to the surface, really is what it is. Even the middle of Niagara and the lake, where you have like quite sandy soils, there's still limestone there. It's just really far down. But when you get limestone nearer to the surface, when you start getting clay and minerals and all those things, you end up with these wines that are, like I was saying, like super, super like dense flavor wise. And what's crazy is they seem to last forever. Like this is a crazy example. Like I like showing it now. So honestly, Lowry might be like the Benjamin Button of wine. And, no, for real. The reason I say that is you've seen Thomas's, you've seen mine, you've seen other ones when they're young. Like our 19 is not a joke, like half as light as this. Like it has like no color. It's sort of translucent. You can barely see it. This wine was that color when we bottled it. And for the first, and it's like the color, you know, all those things in when they teach you about wine and they're like, oh, red wines get lighter and you lose color and whatever. That's true with every other wine I've ever made and not Lowry. This is not a joke. It's like it gains color.
Yeah.
As it ages. It's the weirdest thing, and gains body and richness, even though when you first bottle it, it's sort of like leafy and floral and pretty. But it doesn't seem to have the weight, and then as it ages, the weight like comes along, which I know sounds weird. But
It's completely backward.
Yeah, it is. That's what I mean. It's like
it's crazy. Yeah. It's nuts.
Yeah.
And there's no like barely any oxidation.
No, that's the point. Like, and if you think about it, it's a 12-year-old wine now, and it's Pinot. And people always talk about, oh, Pinot, 6-8 years, and I'm like, any decent vineyard here, like something like Lowry. I mean, I've tasted. So the fun thing is I actually had this with another winemaker. So Craig McDonald from Creekside. And he actually, he used to make Lowry way back when he was at Creekside, like literally 25 years ago almost. And so he one time poured me blind an even older Lowry. And he poured it for me. And what he said, what wine is this? And I'm like, well, it's Lowry. That's easy. It's obvious. and he's like, well, yeah, but what year? And I was like, oh, I don't know. This is so hard. So I had like a 10 or something, and he poured me, and it was like, and he's like, I'm like, I don't know, 2006, 2007. And he's like, 2000.
Holy
10 years older. And it was like about that much older, like tasting. Like it was 20 years old. Like this is only this is right before COVID. So for whatever reason, like good Niagara Pinot can legitimately last like 15, 20 years. And it doesn't make sense because some of the wines, when you start off with them, they don't seem very kind of big and full, but it's about like acid and real structure. Does that make sense? Like they've got the like inherent like minerality, stoniness, structure. And that seems to matter more than like pure weight. I mean, this wine is 13% alcohol, right? You know, some years is 12 and a half. Like it's not.
Exactly. I had one from Thomas from the 19 vintage, is 12% on the dot.
Correct. I've had ones like that. No problem. Yeah.
I mean,
I've had like a big year is like, this is a big year at 13. That's we joke.
Wow.
It's like 12 to 13. That's pretty much it. And it's like so ripe and beautiful and like complex. So
So when I pop that, okay, that's before that I've tasted first or smell anything. I'm like, okay, 12 years old. I'm going to have some oxidation, probably some caramel. And like, I'm expecting a 12-year-old wine.
Yeah.
It's dark cherry on the nose. It's like, I mean, this purity, the purity of fruits.
No, it still has tons of life in it. That's what I mean.
I know.
And that's what I try and explain to people is just these wines are, just full of energy, full of energy and life. And I think
that's how I describe the new vintage. And it's still exactly the same description.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And again, one of the reasons I wanted to show it was just that. I don't quite have as much proof on my own vineyard. My first vintage is 2015 on my own place. And even those, though, same thing. They're like the 15 is still like very young. As an example, like it's like we're like, oh, it's like just like it needs air when you open it, and it's a 15 now. Like this is I'm talking like because we just had some for our 10th anniversary, and the same thing. Like it was just like, oh, we should have decanted it, and it's a 15. We're thinking so. These are like we are building wines for real long-term aging. Like it's just and it's exciting. It's an exciting time for Niagara wine.
It is really exciting because when you look at it, like to me, there's at least 5 years, no brainer, 5 to 7 years without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, like to me, it's peaking right now.
Yes, exactly. That's one of the reasons I wanted to pour it is because even when I tasted it, I was like, it's like just entering like the drinking window. At 12 years old. which again, people don't think of Canadian wine that way. And we're just starting to kind of have proof of this. And that's why I think legitimately the 2010s are probably like a golden age for Canadian wine. And now we just kind of have the proof for it, if that makes sense. Now, kind of like 10 years later, like there's so much kind of going on there. So.
And they're soft now. Oh my God! Like the tannin has softened up, and oh wow, bang on! It's incredible. I need Mira to know where are we on the schedule right now? Who's our next guest, and what time does he coming in? Because what we have here. I mean, so from an extreme to another. In Niagara, the Senchuk Vineyard. Now you said it's 10 years old.
Yeah, it's actually I guess 12 years old now. Coming up because planted in 2012 and we're 2024, so coming up to year 12 on our home property.
And just to give people a little where you're located near the Grimsby Hillside, right? If you're
right across the street. We're actually the best way to describe it is you kind of pass Hamilton if you're going toward Niagara Falls, and as soon as you pass Hamilton and you see signs that say "Welcome to Niagara," quite literally, it's like we're the first exit. Like we're like about you can see kind of on the far left hand side of Lincoln Lakeshore. We're literally the first road you see there is 50 Road. We're right off of there, so we're at the extreme kind of west end. And then the wine we're trying tonight is from St. David's Bench. So extreme, like way all the way. You can see St. David's Bench runs like toward almost the American border. So it's like, and that's the amazing thing that we're doing now is producers like us, we're doing 4 single vineyard Pinots from end to end. You know what I mean? Plus blended ones. So we're doing stuff like you name it, like in all kinds of styles. And that is the exciting part because they taste so different.
And it's like here in BC, if we have a winemaker who makes a Pinot from Lake Country and a Pinot from Osoyoos. Yeah. Like literally, yeah. Wow, that's crazy. I love it. Mira, how are we doing on schedule?
Amazingly, you're right on time. You said around 4:45. 5:45, you want to be on our next interview, which I think you have to decide. It's one of the 2 recorded interviews. Is it Stratus or Painted Rock? You let me know.
Okay. Oh, Elia, it's amazing. Thank you for taking the time for doing that. I really, really appreciate that. I can't wait to see you at the end of the month. And for everyone who's watching tonight, and they're going to be part of our event here in June. Elias coming to join us for the Pan Canadian as well. So, and this time we're going to feature your home vineyard, featuring the Saint-Chuck Vineyard Pinot Noir. So here you go, my friend. I greatly appreciate your time.
Hey, no problem. I hope you guys enjoyed the wine. I think it's, like I said, it's crazy. It's just kind of getting going, and you know, that's the excitement we're all bringing to Canadian wine. I don't know. that's what it's all about.
Yeah, Rob Amersley and Richard De Silva are on their way to taste all of the wine, and I know that we're gonna have a good Pinot conversation. Amazing. That is for sure. Thanks a million, my friend. Say hi to Nadia for us, okay?
I will. Thanks a lot.
Yes,
take care.
Later, guys.
Holy
amazing.
shit. No. You have no idea. Okay, this is 2 wines. Okay, we're at 2 wines only. Yeah. And I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my mind right now.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. Well, I still need to come up and taste the Leaning Post wine. I know. But like the good look, that's the good news. It's almost brand new. Okay. Would you mind to text Twyla? Twyla just sent a text asking if Richard needs to bring wines, and you can text her. Don't worry, we are good on wine. We have lots of wine, including 2012 De Silva Merlot.
Yes, but if you can text her back, because you have my phone down there.
No, I did. I already did.
Okay.
Okay,
perfect.
Would you like to meet with a Dean from Stratus and open the 2006?
Yes,
or should
please.
We jump into red? Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Let's go with Dean. Let's go with Dean, because it was my first time meeting with Dean. I've never met him before, and man, I could have talked for a couple of hours with that guy. So,
and how long did you talk for? Just curious.
Offline, 40 minutes, but I recorded just for 17 minutes.
Oh, that's very good. You might actually be on time for this one. That's exciting, you guys. All right.
So before we talked, we clicked in. Look at that color.
So what's that? The Stratus 06?
2006 Stratus White.
Wow.
It's a dominant Chardonnay with Gewürztraminer, Viognier, and Semillon and Sauvignon Blanc. Gewürztraminer is usually no longer part of the blend in the more recent history, but Gewürz apparently in 2006 was such a superstar at Harvest that they felt they need to put a healthy 12 to 15% of Gewürztraminer in there. I can smell it, but I mean, just a hint, it doesn't take over the wine. So
fascinating.
The aromatic of that wine is very, very intriguing. Lemon meringue, rose petal. There's a little bit also of gooseberry and some pear. I mean, this is like, whoa, there's so much going on in there.
Amazing. And I do see Ron Furman down in the green room. I don't know if Ron is a little early. Yes, just a teeny bit. So we're going to bring you on, Ron, right after we chat with Dean in about 15, 17 minutes. So that's going to be very exciting. Ron is actually a grower that we have been enjoying his wines for a couple of years. They set a new standard for us when it came to texture, especially in Syrah. Hey, Carl? So
absolutely. Syrah and Sangiovese, I think Ron have absolutely pushed the limit in terms of the fruits that he provides to Summerhill. And it's our benchmark in terms of textural wines. Absolutely. I cannot wait to chat with the man, the myth, the legend.
Amazing. So that'll be right after our interview here with Dean Stoika, who is a winemaker at Stratus in Niagara, Ontario.
Yeah, okay. Now I'll let him tell the story, because there's a very cool fact about the 2006 Stratus. So I'll let you listen to it. Guys, I'll get back to you in 15 minutes. Oh, hey, we're here with with Dean, winemaker at Stratus Vineyard. Dean, thanks for joining me. This is a very special day. We're tasting 10 bag vintage wines from coast to coast. There's some great wine in that lineup, and we're thrilled to have the 2006 Stratus White part of the lineup. So, Dean, how's it going?
Yeah, it's good. Good. Just enjoying pruning season. Thanks so much for having me on and able to talk about the wine and about Stratus, about what we're doing here. But yeah, pruning season's going good. We're almost finished and we're getting ready to start tying in the vineyard. Almost
finished, eh? Wow, yeah. You guys have started a bit early. So I'm hearing that you guys back east had a warmer spring. So yeah, I guess
that's what got us started early. You know, when you have these earlier warmer winters, you start thinking, well, if bud breaks a week or two early, you want to have the vines certainly pruned and tied if ideally if you can. And so we had a team of 3 people out in the vineyard pruning since about mid to late January.
Oh, wow. Okay, there you go. So how many acre of vines that you guys have under the Stratus portfolio?
56.
Okay. And what's the core for the core grapes or the core wines who are leading the center of the portfolio?
So we grow 16 varieties, but Chardonnay and Cab Franc make up almost 50%. So those 2 varieties do really well in Niagara Lake, especially, you know, Cab Franc overwinters really well. You get great ripeness, good mouthfeel, beautiful aromatics, and Chardonnay is the same. So that's making up the portion of what we have. And then the other 14 varieties are all spread between, you know, Cab Sauv, Merlot, Sangiovese, Tannat, Tempranillo, Viognier, Semillon. We have a huge collection of different varieties that do really well on our site and really, offer this blend that we're going to be talking about. And this is how we use the art of assemblage with these different varieties.
Well, that's okay. Now let's dig in because we have tonight this Stratus 2006, the white blend. I want to start with the very beginning, what Mother Nature has provided the team at Stratus at the growing season of 2006. Seems pretty crazy, but it's 18 years ago.
Yeah.
But you winemaker are a bunch of crazies too, because sometimes you're kind of a library in your head. Oh yes, see, 2006, this, and this. I experienced that with Sue-Ann and Brian Schmidt a couple times when they're just like popping out like back vintage out of their head like that. Is crazy. So
please go of the year and everything like that. Well, so I started at Stratus in 2010. So that one happened just about 4 years before I got there. I just saw the tail end of that coming out of barrel and going into bottle. And I started at Stratus in the retail store. So that was actually the first wine that I poured in the retail store at Stratus in 2010 before I moved into the winemaking and the vineyard and everything, you know, to my progression of today. So I know the wine very well. I remember opening that wine and being blown away. And actually on my first job interview at Stratus with JL, and I was a winemaking intern through Mira Carl. I was doing the wine program. The 2006 Stratus White is what we tasted. And that's what attracted
me. Oh my God, that is so cool.
It's just what attracted me to Stratus because I never had a wine like this in my life before. And most of the Niagara region hadn't. It was very revolutionary style of wine, this blended white, very textural wine. And 2006 was a perfect year to show that. It was a long season and a bit cooler in the summer. It was, 2007 as winemakers, we really talk about the amazingness of 2007, really particularly about red wines, and same with 2010. A lot of people are always gravitating to these high growing degree day, warm years, and they love the Cab Sauv and the Merlot. But what we really should talk about in these other years, like 2006, 2009, 2013, is this cooler vintage where you have a long growing season, good sunlight, but the daytime highs are more like 28 degrees, not 32, 33. And it really preserves this acidity and this beautiful freshness that you're going to taste in that 2006 white. And you get a good blend in those years because of the length of the growing season. You get some, citrus fruit, some fresh fruit, but you're also getting a bit of tropical, especially from the Viogniers and the Semillons that you're tasting. And that wine has a particular high amount of Gewürztraminer, which gave this beautiful floral character in 2006.
Okay, you mentioned JL when you went to your interview at Stratus, and I mean, how it is to work with a legend like that. I mean, like Jean-Laurent grew. I mean, like grew up in vineyards in Burgundy and Bordeaux, and you start right out of school. You sit down with a guy with that background. Man, what's the influence on your career?
Well, the wines that I made, JL's winemaking lives on in the winemaking that I do, right? The only winemaking I know is from what JL has taught me and what I've learned under JL and traveling the world. JL is a great world traveler. I grew up in the Niagara region, and I was very, intense on wanting to make really exceptional wines from the terroir of Niagara. And so I came and did this interview with JL, and it was really eye-opening for me back in, the 2009, 2010. When you're in winemaking school, they really teach you, the winemaker is kind of like the celebrity. You make the wine. The wines have so much to do with the winemaker. And I walk into the winery, Strass is this beautiful facility, and JL and I go out in the vineyard, and he's kind of like, forget that winery. You can build that winery anywhere in the world. What we really care about is right here in the soil. The wine is made in the vineyard. And, now every winemaker says that in the new world these days. But in 2010, that wasn't what people were saying back then. It was really the world of kind of Parkerization, new oak, and all that kind of stuff. It was really about the winemaker. And so I was kind of like, wow, that's a really interesting story. I never thought about the importance of the vines on the vineyard or on the wines. And so we did this interview, and we tasted some wines, and we tasted the Stratus White. And that was the wine. Stratus White is the wine where I said, okay, I have to work at this winery. I have to learn under this winemaker, how does he make this blend? And it's this evolution of winemaking, generation to generation, passed down. Like you need to work with somebody 10 to 15 years to learn this art of assemblage. You can't do it in 1 or 2 because there's so much influence on vintage, on the varieties, and you need to like inherently know the DNA of the material you're working with, so you can make this textural, intense wine that blends seamlessly. It's like a perfect art piece, right? So that's what it's like, working with JL. Is he's a great mentor, and I just kept going. The more that I worked with JL, the more I wanted to learn, and he's a wealth of knowledge. So 15 years later, I'm still learning from JL. He's traveling. He was just in Sicily, and he'll come back to the winery, and we'll debrief on his trips, on my trips, and we'll talk about different innovations. This is how we've moved to amphora. We started blending whites with reds in one wine. We've done so much innovative stuff over the years because he loves to travel. I love to travel. And we love this idea of the future of tradition, where we're trying to look back in the textbooks or go to historic regions and find stuff that was done hundreds of years ago and try and modernize it in today's winemaking. And this Assemblage Stratus White is very much speaking to this very old way, this testament of making wine as a blend in a newer, fun way, making Gewürztraminer with Chardonnay and Semillon and Sauvignon Blanc. People look at that and say, oh, what an unusual blend, but it goes so well together.
I mean, I'm going off script right now, but I'm fascinated with what you're saying. Which of these region that you've been has the most influence on your style? Is there one place? I mean, probably all of these trips have a very special place on you, but is there one what you can say like, oh, this one absolutely hit me right in the head and I came back completely changed?
Yeah, well, there's been a few interesting ones. I did Northern Italy on a trip with Sparkling Winemakers back in 2018, and that was really influential on some field blend ideas. We've always done the art of assemblage and blending in barrel, and in Italy I started tasting all these field blend wines. And I thought, oh, okay, so I'd love to try that and use the art of assemblage, but instead of the winemaker's influence, you take, like you were saying, what nature gives you, and you're blending the varieties right there, all at the press. They all go together, and we make this ancestral wine. So that was really influential. In 2013, I went to Priorat and learned a lot about making wine in amphora, and now we do a lot of winemaking in amphoras and things like that. And then another region that's been really important on my winemaking is Portugal, and in particular the Azores. My partner is from the Azores, and so we've been going to this island called Peak in the Azores, where it's kind of the wine island. And what it showed me is that, we talk about how hard winemaking is in Ontario and in Niagara. BC is included in that. And then you go to this little island in the middle of the Atlantic, and you really see what harsh winemaking conditions are. And you actually start to feel good. You say, wow, I thought we were the most challenging winemaking region in the world. But look at this volcanic island. It's 45 minutes to drive from one side to the other. So tiny, middle of the Atlantic. And you get this idea of like the ocean and the wind. And so that's been pretty influential to sort of show me, what's possible out there. And we always talk about, how hard viticulture is, but vines can adapt, anywhere. You'll find a vine growing on pretty much any place in the world. They will find a way. And that's what you have to remember is they're very resilient, and we need to sometimes listen to the vine rather than think that we know more than the vine does.
Well, we're talking about the vines here, so let's talk about grape varietals, because 2006 you have, if I remember the text sheet correctly, it's Chardonnay, it's Gewürztraminer, it's Semillon, it's Viognier as well, and Sauvignon Blanc. So this is a mixture of Alsatian varietals.
There's some reason in there too. So yeah, it's complex.
So what can we expect here on the palate?
Well, when you're making this blend, what you're trying to do is compile these varieties together that check each box. And you're looking for texture, you're looking for mouthfeel, you're looking for aromatic and intensity, you're looking for complexity. And so when you have different varieties, you're trying to put these things in one blend together that each show and tell their story, with no variety overpowering the other. And you'll see in that one, I think it's the most Gewürztraminer we ever put in a wine. I think it's 16%, which is kind of intense. But that year was beautiful for the Gewürz. The cooler vintage made the Gewürztraminer not as intense as most Gewürztraminers are. And so this is important to know in the art of assemblage. When I talk about knowing your raw material you're dealing with, you have this Gewürztraminer and it's got this floral character, and you're trying to find the balance in this blend where you get a hint of floral, but it's not overpowering the rest of the wines. And that's what you're really looking for in this art, is how can you get the mouthfeel of the Chardonnay, the aromatics, citrus fruit from the Sauvignon Blanc, the floral of the Gewürztraminer, and this tropical fruit of the Semillon all in one wine, so you get everything.
And because the Gewürz sometimes can take over quickly, right? We know how powerful it can be and take over the whole show. So managing that part must have been the most complex of them all.
Yeah, and when you're doing the blends, we do everything blind. So it's actually starting, JL's coming back from Italy in a week, and we're going to start doing our blends together and working on the 2023 Stratus White and the 2022 Stratus Red. And the blending trials take about a month long, all blind tastings. And what you would do in something like Gewürztraminer is we're going to cross the path where we're going to be trying to fit Gewürztraminer in the blend. And we might try it at 2%, 4%, 6%, 8%, 10%. And it'll be all blind. You won't know when that comes. And you're tasting and smelling. And when you get the hint of the floral, the hint of the Gewürztraminer, you want to lock it in. When you're going, and sometimes Gewürz, because you know how powerful it is, your sensory senses for linalool, for instance, which is kind of like the rose petal character in Gewürztraminer, might be 200 nanograms, and Gewürztraminer might have 2,000. So if you just want a hint of that linalool, you only want a small percentage of that in the wine. Otherwise, as soon as you go from, let's say, 4% to 6%, your sensory threshold for linalool jumps up, and now all you can smell is the linalool, and you lose the citrus, you lose the tropical. And so that's where this really important to taste blind, and it's really important to try these trials. And we just keep comparing until we crown this wine that really achieves all these goals we're setting out for.
It's like walking on a tightrope. I mean, like, to keep this balance, I mean, like the room for error on either side must, like, it's really, really tiny.
Yeah.
And okay, so 06, we're talking about that. And now, like let's talk about, because the evolution of that wine have been tremendous over the years. If I look at the recent release, we're talking Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Semillon.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have like that same assemblage. Have you moved into field blend as well for the Stratus White, or you stay more part of the?
Yeah, so far it's still made in the traditional way that JL has passed on, which is blending in barrels, although we do some other field blends that could end up in barrels as part of the blend. Okay. That's not to say one day we might not do a field blend to make another version of a Stratus White or whatever it is, because we love having 16 varieties. We have 56 acres and 45 blocks, so it's like a rainbow of different varieties planted in the vineyard. It really is sort of planted to this field blend idea. But the evolution kind of goes along with, the evolution in winemaking and where winemaking is going today, to preserve more freshness, more of the terroir, more of the cool climate characteristics. If you think back to 2006, you still had Robert Parker giving, 100-point scores to 100% oak wines, and people were loving this oaky sort of vanilla-like Chardonnay. And today we're way more focused on the fruit and the soil and the vineyard and the preservation of the terroir. So what we do in the Stratus White today is instead of 2 years in barrel, we're 1 year in barrel versus back then. We're using amphoras that we're sourcing from Italy and from Spain and from different parts of the world, as well as oak. And all that's going into this blend. And then the assemblage, of course, does reflect sort of what we have planted predominantly in the vineyard, because, Gewürztraminer for us is only 0.75 an acre, whereas Chardonnay is making up 7 acres. So it would be impossible to have a wine unless you made a very, very small amount, where Gewürztraminer was the dominant variety just based on vineyard planting. So it kind of fits between Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay. They tend to be the base, and that's because they're aromatically, and the palate of them make for great
structurally, right?
And then we're using the Viognier, the Semillon, the Gewürztraminer in different fashions. And some years, and it's always changing. Some years, like the one 2021, has no Viognier, and that's just the nature of how we made that wine that year.
I'm recording this earlier in the day, okay? And this one's going to be open tonight. We'll see what's left in there, because come on, 2006, 18 years later, what can I expect? Have you tasted this wine lately?
Oh, I taste it all the time. You know what? We had this amazing idea back in 2000 and roughly 7 or 8, which really pays off for us today, is that we wanted to prove to the world what Niagara wines could do ageability. Because when Stratus opened the doors, you have people, of course, questioning, what's the ageability of a premium Niagara wine? Can it go like a Bordeaux or a Burgundy and things like that? So what we did is started holding wine back by the palate from 2006, 2007, 2008, so that we could re-release them one day and sort of show people the idea. And the benefit of that is today, with the cost of housing and things like that, the younger generation of drinkers, let's say 25 to 40, they don't have the cellar space or maybe the patience or time for cellaring. They're looking for wines that are already aged that they can go and purchase right there. So we re-release these in our retail store so that people have the opportunity, and they don't have to invest their own time and 15, 18 years. Well, let's say it's a 2006, so 15 years probably in your cellar. You can buy it from our cellar at a reasonable price and get a chance to taste these wines that are well aged. And what you're going to see there is a wine, compared to the 2007, it's starting to go a little bit more gold in the 2006. The 7 looks like we bottled it yesterday still. It's kind of crazy. And that's what you get in these years where it's a really hot year with a lot of new oak. But the 06 is starting to get a little bit more gold, and the fruit is, but still very strong. Tropical, you get this waxiness that's coming from the Semillon. I think you're going to like it. It's a really interesting wine that otherwise, if you don't purchase that from the retail, you would never have a chance to try. And you really
absolutely
potential to see.
Yeah, that is crazy. It's fun because, like you mentioned, wow, it keeps going. But I mean, like, we're so tight on time. We have like multiple people joining right now. But I mean, Dean mentioned it. But my key thing, they wanted to show the world. They wanted to show Canadian from the very beginning that we can age wine in Canada. Is it not what we're doing now? Is it not the whole purpose of that?
It's incredible. And this Stratus White, I have to tell you, I mean, so we got a bunch of people starting to come here. We've got Richard De Silva in the house with Twyla De Silva. We've got Robin Michelle Hammersley from Black Market. And you know what? I can't wait till they taste this white, because it's a 2006 white blend and it has aged spectacularly. It is gorgeous. It is layered. It's complex. There's not 1 ounce. I was worried because when you say Viognier and Semillon, I think with age that can get a little bit bitter. It can get a little bit, nothing. It is just gorgeous.
And look at that color. It's amazing. So we're gonna switch gear right away.
Wow.
Let's switch gear right away. And I have I just smell that, and I mean, let's bring in Ron Fearman here, because the 2014 Summerhill Spadefoot Toad Syrah explode out of the glass right now. The aromatic are so powerful. It's incredible. So I can't wait to talk with Ron.
Yes. So we mentioned earlier, Ron Furman is here. Brandon James is also here with us from Summerhill as well. So Summerhill 2014 Spadefoot Toad Syrah. I'll put the picture up just for a sec so you guys know what we're talking about here. We tasted this wine when? 2-3 years ago?
Yeah.
It was one of your top wines of the year.
Yeah.
And it redefined our standard. Like, there's been maybe 2 wines since that we go, oh, this is a little bit like that Spadefoot Toad Syrah. And
It's
so
texture.
we can't
It's about
wait.
texture. It's textural, right? And
Yeah, we can't
and now
wait
what
to
it's
hear
cool
about it.
and all that, and we're gonna talk about the raw material. And it's not about the aging. It's not about the barrel of what they use at Summerhill, because they've done a great job, a masterful. Michael has done a masterful job. But now we're going to talk about the raw material. We're going to talk about that small vineyard in Oliver, BC, that it's farmed by Ron Fearman. So let's bring the crew on. Let's bring Brandon and Ron Fearman here with us to talk about the 2014
Woo!
Spadefoot Toad Syrah.
Woohoo! I do have a bit of an
Whoops.
I might have to do a little muting and unmuting if that echo persists, but that's so great to have you guys here.
There you go. Welcome, welcome, Brendan from Summerhill. Mr. Fearman, nice to meet you. The man, the myth, the legend. I am honored to have you on the show, Mr. Fearman. Welcome. And today we're just showcasing the world. We're showcasing to Canadian wine lovers how wonderfully our Canadian wines from one ocean to other can age gracefully. So I'm really excited to talk about the 2014 Spadefoot Toad Syrah made by Brendan's team at Summerhill in Kelowna. So Mr. Fearman, good evening. How are you doing?
Good evening.
Oh. There you go.
Turn your mic up, Ron.
Am I there?
There you go. Yes, you're here. You're here. Perfect. So, Ron, I was wondering, how big is your vineyard? I'm just wondering about the microphone. Where's your air? Oh, I might.
You might have to turn it up a bit.
There you. Oh,
A little better.
now we can hear you. There you go. There you go. Thank you, Ron.
So it's just
Oh no. Yeah, we can't hear you, man.
Too bad. Too bad. Too bad. Oh, I heard you now.
Wait, did you hear me?
Yeah, I did. Oh, now it's on mute from somewhere.
Okay.
There you go. Now you're on.
Okay.
There you go. Perfectly there.
Maybe.
No, it's weird. We start the sentence and we lose him. So I think, Brendan, we're going to have to.
In and out, Ron. I just wonder if you want to. Do you have a phone?
I do.
Yeah. Can I text you? No, maybe I can email you or send you the same link. And if you want to try joining from the phone in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, because what's happening is your microphone's going in and out. So I don't know if it's distance from the microphone or what, but.
I'm calling you right now.
There you go. And while we're doing that in the background, I'm going to start the conversation with Brendan. Brendan, how's your evening, buddy? Oh, you're on mute, Brendan. You're on mute. There you go.
Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
So
yeah,
I tell you one thing. We just have a couple of 2006 Stratus from Niagara. Incredibly, this one has aged so gracefully. It's fantastic. The 2012 Pinot Noir from the St. David's Bench in Niagara as well. Like it tastes like a 5-year-old wine. So. Wow. Yeah, what a start. It's so exciting what we're doing right now. And I opened the reds. I have the Spadefoot Toad here, the 2014 in my glass. Very exuberant, the aromas are exploding out of the glass. So, Brendan, tell us a little bit about the philosophy of Summerhill. When you guys when you receive the grape, the very precious product from Ron Fearman, what he like, it's his vineyard is so precious. So how do you treat the fruit when you get the fruit at the winery?
Yeah, it's too bad that Michael couldn't make it tonight, but yeah, I guess I'll just speak for him. He's Michael's style of winemaking and so like generally Summerhill style of winemaking over the years has been more about been more restrained. We partner with a lot of amazing growers, and it's been the philosophy that we just sort of allow the fruit to speak in our wines. So we don't tend to cover up with an excessive amount of oak or, sort of any kind of additions or anything like that, because of course we're we're a biodynamic winery first, estate grown here, and then partners like Ron, they're all PAX certified, organic, and we tend to partner with people who do amazing things. So yeah, we're really trying to go for that sort of that French style, that very sort of fruit forward expression with everything. And yeah, I think the 2014 is absolutely spectacular. We were pretty lucky that we were opening up some pretty old and delicious wines. I'm always finding new things in the cellar. We're actually we just started with a bunch of new systems here, so I'm finding all these fun wines from all over the place and categorizing them and putting them in good places. So it's been fun to see the gems we have in the cellar and see what's tasting good right now. And Ron's fruit is always good. It's always, every bottle of wine that comes out of his vineyard has been spectacular. So
I mean, there's a freshness, but there's a purity of fruit who comes out of that vineyard, which to me, it's very, very unique. And the texture, that's what we always refer to when we talk about the Spadefoot Toad vineyard. It's textural. There is a softness. It's velvety. It's like the iron fist in the velvet glove. There's a power which turns into an elegance, and it's absolutely reflecting that 2014 vintage, which I believe was a warm vintage, but not excruciatingly hot. There was no heat dome. It was fairly balanced, but a hot vintage on its own. So beautiful wine, but there's also a bright acid, beautiful acidity in there. This wine will keep aging for a good amount of time. Oh, here you go. We're back.
Well, let's see if we have better luck.
Oh my God! There you go. There you go.
Hurry up! Nobody wants to talk to me, so get at it.
So you were saying 2015 was a warm year.
You
were saying 2015 was a warm year.
I was saying 2014.
Oh, 14, yes. Okay.
Yes. I was just talking about the 14 vintage. But Ron, I'm interested to talk about your plot of land. I want to talk about that small vineyard that you have, and what is your philosophy of viticulture?
Well, I'm lucky and cursed to have predominantly sand. It's 90% silica sand. It's probably sandier than any beach you've ever been to in your life, except maybe in Australia. But it's pure sand. But I augment with composted manure every year, and have been doing that for years. It started as a raw piece of land. It had never been farmed, so I just traveled through Europe, went through Germany and France, and looked at vineyards. And I'm lucky enough, my brother's very brilliant with growing grapes, and we've been growing grapes already for almost 30 years here, before even a shovel was put into this property. And so we'd been doing it for a while, and we just continued and went organic with it right away, because it had never been farmed before. And waited the right amount of time before we got our first crop. We turned the water off early. We make sure we put the vines to bed, as it were, before winter, keeping low crops, trying to keep a low crop. and just, allowing whatever the vine will give us and whatever the farm gives us. Um, we kind of get our outcome after that, and each year is different, depending on the weather, the climate, the moisture. I do use overhead irrigation in the spring once or twice, and then use drip for the rest of the year. And in those years I was deficit watering. Deficit watering being, every morning I would go out and I would look at the grapes, and I would see them, and they would look nice and plump and turgid. And then in the afternoon, they would all the leaves are falling down, and the grapes are actually look like raisins almost. And then they're looking at you saying, "Oh, I need water, I need water." And I'm saying, "No, you don't." And then the next morning I would go and I would look, and the grapes would be turgid and the leaves would be looking good. And then, you would go through this process day after day, day after day. And then you'd go the next morning finally, and you would see the grapes were like raisins and they needed water. So then you would water. And in a couple of years in a row there, 12, 13, 14, and 15, uh, as memory serves me, we had really perfect weather where, uh, you know the weather really cooperated with the type of farming I was doing with deficit watering. And we do get very thin skinned Syrah. Some areas in the valley here get thicker skin depending on their soil, because they have, these loamy thicker soils with clay and, different substances in the soil. And I have pure sand, so it has a tendency to give you this very delicate soft skin that, when you make your wine, it has a tendency to, dissipate and break down and give you what I call a slippery leather saddle, is what I'm shooting for the texture of the wine. Trying to copy the Australian style on some of the Australian wines, but the winemaker mostly does that. But in my head, it's the type of grape I'm trying to grow. And we do spray with organic seaweed, and, a few other things to help the stomata and the leaves and things to, bring the fruit up to date, as it were, to get that, not so much full ripeness, but to get the overall physiology, the ripeness of the berry is what it's all about. It's not so much about, farmers talk about sugars and wineries talk about sugars and acid and tannin, but you want overall, physiology, ripeness of the berry in the cluster. And those years we were quite lucky to attain that type of you know, an outcome.
So, I mean, you're doing it at a very, very, very high level. And what I mean, I'm curious to know why Spadefoot Toad. Where's the name of the vineyard comes from?
Okay, so that's a very interesting question. So, years ago, when my father was alive, we were in a natural drainage area on my parents' property, which is right next to this property, and all the oil from the vineyard and mostly the farm orchard sprays would all leach down into this bottom spot. Well, we decided to clean it up. We drag lined it all out and put rock in, and we spent, a lot of money doing this. And it's a natural seepage, eight gallons a minute of a natural seeping aquifer. And it filled up, and, we put fish in it and we could swim in it. And in the early days, it was, well, then we noticed there was toads in there and tiger salamanders and things. So we got rid of the fish and just kind of left it as a pond. And the old irrigation ditch that runs into Oliver is called the 1931 ditch. Well, most farmers have pulled that old ditch out. There's a new ditch now for irrigation, but I kept it. And we noticed that in the back of the farm, in the back area where the ditch is, it would rain, and then the rain would stay in the ditch because it's a cement sealed irrigation ditch to hold water. And it would hold 6 or 7 inches of water. And all of a sudden you would hear toads burping at night. And then we realized they were laying eggs, and then we were having baby toads, tadpoles, and then there'd be toads hopping around everywhere after a couple of months. So I decided to, help them along and augment that. So I shot back the ditch and cleaned it out, put a couple inches of sand on the ground, and add some more water and give them clean water. And it has to be the same temperature. So I've been technically farming toads for years, 30 or close to 40 years now. So when I started the new vineyard up top, we were always kind of called Spadefoot Toad Farm, but I decided to call it Spadefoot Toad Vineyard.
Wow.
Which is
and you're farming. You're farming
it's an endangered species here. I think it's blue listed.
That's amazing. I love that. And you're farming most exclusively Syrah and Sangiovese, or there's other varietals that you're farming?
Yeah, we do. We do have our own personal vineyard that we do sell small amounts to other wineries. So there's Chardonnay, Merlot, Cab Sauv, and we keep a little bit for ourselves, and we do sell those. But those are farmed traditionally, even though we don't really use any sprays or poisons or glyphosate or anything like that to kill weeds or kill anything else. It's all pretty much looked after the same way, but my brother couldn't bother to be certified organic for just a small vineyard.
I mean, it's amazing. Ron, I mean, the fruits of your vineyard always shine, always, and I believe makes the life of a winemaker definitely much easier, and you make them look good on a yearly basis. This is some of the most precious fruit that I know. 2014, 2016, and just tasted 2017 with Brandon a couple weeks ago. 17 has a ton of potential as well. I feel like I'm grateful. Thank you so much for joining us. This wine, the 2014, is following us to Toronto for a very exclusive tasting. It was happening at the end of the month, and we are thrilled to showcase that wine to international wine collectors in the Toronto area. So once again, Mr. Fearman, thank you for taking the time to join us tonight.
I hope it shows well, and I hope Brandon lets you try the 2020. Because those are the best grapes I ever grew up. I was happy in 15 years of growing grapes.
Okay.
Wow.
I'm drinking.
Brandon.
Oh no.
Brandon, I'll be at the winery. I'll be at the winery on Monday morning. Oh my God. Okay, 2020, Brandon. You know that I'm going to be at the winery Monday morning.
Yeah. I won't.
So it's already at the winery? That's incredible. Ron, we're so grateful. Brandon, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. They do a great job at Summerhill. They're really nice to work with. I've partnered with them for life.
Yeah, Ryan's okay too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, you guys.
Thanks, Brendan, for organizing that. That I greatly appreciate. So it was Ron Fearman, who is a grower, organic grower in the south of the Okanagan Valley, owns the Spadefoot Toad Vineyard, and it's the home and the roots of a very special source of Syrah and Sangiovese that makes the 2014 Summerhill Spadefoot Toad Syrah one of the very special wines that we have. And
and now we know what to look forward to as well. I mean, we already tasted the 17. We know there's so much ahead of that one. But the 2020, he says it's his favorite one. So now we know.
Absolutely.
Out, you guys.
I guess that we have another guest in the green room.
We do. So, I mean, this is tough because these are the kinds of wines, every one of the wines we've tasted so far, they're life-changing wines. They redefine your experience with wine. I know you guys listening, you've had that experience at some point. That's what hooks you on wanting to know more about wine, because you taste a wine once in a while that you're like, wow. And every one of the wines we're opening tonight is like that. So, I mean, I can't keep up. I can take one sip in 15 minutes while you guys are talking, or maybe one sniff, and I just want to savor it for hours. So,
you know what? So now the next wine is our wine of the year.
Yeah,
that's our wine of the year. The only wine that I gave 95 or better last year out of 1,200 wines. Did I give it 95 plus or 96? 95 plus. 96 points. God's sake.
Every point, like, holy cow.
And I will tell people that my wife, who's my business partner, had dreams about that wine. Okay. She had dreams, waking up in the morning and saying, oh my God, is there any left? I was like, what? What are you talking about? I swear, it's the truth. It's the truth.
So I'm very excited to taste it again, but I'm even more excited to bring in Ted Kane. He's here live with us from Riverstone Winery. He's the owner and winemaker at Riverstone. So Ted, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys. I'm honored to be in with you guys right now. So in your green room, or actually live, or whatever we're doing now. It's great to see both of you. Thanks for inviting me.
We're live now, so yeah, you're right into the show, and we are super thrilled to have you. I mean, we had a really special experience when we visited the winery last summer and early fall, and you were there. And before we left, you say, "Wait a minute, I have something for you guys," and you gave us a bottle of the Milestone, and you say, "Please don't feel obligated to anything, just taste it and let me know what you think." But that changed the course of our year last year at Carl's Wine Club. And I'm not joking. I mean, there was one wine at 96 points all year long. And this wine, absolutely, there's not very words to put beside. I was absolutely floored. And when we put that tasting together with Mark Nadeau, with that concept of aging wine, this is the first wine that I had in mind to finally take it out of the Okanagan and put it on the national stage, because I really, really wanted to put that wine on the national stage, Ted. And here we are. So thanks for doing that with us. We have them all open in front of us, and it's very, very exciting. So just to give an idea to our people, Riverstone Winery is located in Oliver, here in the south of the Okanagan Valley. And how many acre of vineyard do you have, Ted?
We now have 20 acres of property with about 16 acres growing vines right now. Our original piece of land was 10 acres, and then in 2020 we got a second 10 acres as well.
There you go. And I believe that it's called Riverstone for a reason. You guys are in an old bed. It's a stony, very stony terroir that you are on, and it gives your wine very specific typicity, right?
You betcha. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're on we border the Okanagan River, but we rise about 25 to 30 feet above the river, and we're on one big pile of rock and gravel that has southern aspects, east, south, and southwest aspects. And so the heat kind of just revolves throughout the daytime around our property. It's one big heat sink. Gravel, sand, rich in calcium. I've got kind of a frosting of calcium carbonate on much of the soil. So it's really a Bordeaux type of soil, I would have to say, much like many of the soils in France. So unique to the area too, I think. We're not just pure sand. We're not sand, silt, clay like the valley sides. We're rock and gravel. So it's great for those reds, right?
Yeah, and it definitely gives that stony minerality that you find in the structure of the wines. I mean, just had a sip there. This is still a baby. I mean, there's so much more in front of that wine, but oh my God, that texture is so rich and beautiful. Bright, beautiful acidity. Tell me about the 2015 vintage, Ted, because you're the only wine of the whole lineup who's showcasing 2015 vintage. So I would like to have a little bit more precision on how was the growing season.
Okay, yeah. So I went back and I looked up some notes from the growing season there, and just to see clearly here. So 2015 was actually it's many sort of records breaking in that year. There was many people, industry professionals, that were making comments like, one of the best vintages in the last 100 years. At Riverstone, it was my earliest bud break ever, April 10th. So historically, I'm sort of towards the end of April, beginning of May for my bud break. But this was April the 10th, earliest bud break ever. And then we had the earliest harvest ever as well, too. We started our harvest of our whites late August 29th. And our harvest of reds was done by October 1st. Like, that is unprecedented. Everything was a month ahead of time. So, the Cab Franc portion of this one was harvested on the 19th of September. The Merlot started on the 16th of September. clear month ahead of normal dates. So, with that in mind, it just means that was a very, very special year. I'd say it was probably the hottest, one of the hottest vintages, hottest dry long vintages I've ever had. So very special year.
Does it compare a bit with the 2023? Because like if listening to what you're saying, I think 2023 was fairly early on everything as well. So is it something that we can link together?
I don't think. I still think 2015 was still was hotter and drier all the way through. 2021 was that very, very hot year as well. With the heat dome that came through and very early ripening dates, crop loads were down, so that led to earlier harvest dates as well. So 21 was another one. But the beauty of the South Okanagan is so many of our vintages are in hot, dry seasons, and thank goodness for irrigation, because we just don't get the rain that Mother Nature can provide to other areas of the Okanagan, and that's what makes us special. We can portion the water, right, and we can get some very special vintages, and so 2015 just was that much ahead of it as well.
Wow,
that's year. Yeah.
And this very one, let's talk about the milestone, because you don't produce milestone every year. It's something that you will produce exclusively on special year. I'm not even sure. Have you produced another milestone since 2015?
No. So I did produce a milestone actually in 2012. So,
okay, 12 and 15.
And again, an epic growing year. Beautiful, incredibly ripe fruit. Unfortunately, it's only 2 cases of that wine left, and so it's not really widely available. But that being said, I only produced 25 cases in 2012 of that vintage, and the 2015 only saw 50 cases produced. So that's one of the things that makes it exclusively rare, and something that, I don't know, could be sought after for sure. It's got like its story, and the wine that inspired it. It's a rare wine.
That's what I want to get next, because I love that story. Please tell us what was the inspiration of the milestone.
Yeah, so it was based on a story of a wine that is called the 1947 Chateau Cheval Blanc. So Chateau Cheval Blanc is a winery just outside of in Bordeaux, in
Saint-Emilion,
outside Saint-Emilion. Big pardon?
Saint-Emilion, yeah.
Saint-Emilion, yeah. And it was, so 1947. So they had 3 really hot years, 1945, 46, and 47. But back in those days, they had no way of controlling, temperature of fermentations. And they were used to producing wines in the 12 to 12 and a half range as far as alcohol, based on sugar, ripeness, all that sort of stuff. So when they were seeing sugar levels, reaching into the, what was the sugar on it? It would be in the, the alcohol in this wine was, it turned out to be, on Chateau Cheval Blanc was 14.4 that year. And so they had, bricks up in the high 20s, or in the mid 20s, I would have to say, on that wine. So whereas before they would be more in the low 20s. So it was extremely great growing year, hot. They were harvesting mid-September. It was 35 degrees on September 15th when they started their harvest. And their growing soils conditions are 80% sand and gravel, about 20% gravel and clay. So those kind of conditions are very, very similar to my conditions, minus I don't have quite as much clay, but sand and gravel, rich calcium. And our temperatures are typically, in the 30s all summer long, July all the way to the end of September, and sometimes into September anyway, so July and August. But so that year, my bricks were, on my grapes, so 24 and a half on my Cabernet Franc, 25 and a half on my Merlot. But that just tells me there was very, very ripe fruit. And so I decided to do a co-fermentation inspired by the Chateau Cheval Blanc, which also is a Merlot 50-50 Cab Franc Merlot blend. And so that's what I thought, let's give it a shot. And so that's how it all started. I did a co-fermentation under incredibly great conditions. I gave the wine very, very special conditions. But those guys, they didn't have the temperature control. So what they would do is they they were sourcing ice, and they would throw these chunks of ice into the vats just to try to get it cool enough to control the fermentation. They wanted to slow down the fermentation. They didn't want to stuck fermentation. Somehow they ended up, producing a wine that was high in volatile acidity, still high in residual sugars, but through magic, and they say it's unrepeatable, they ended up with a wine that just reached mythical proportions. Some say best wine ever made in the world. I mean, that's subjective, right? But anyway, it was a very inspiring story to me. And I thought, you know what? I've got those growing conditions on an annual basis. Let's go for it. And so gave it premium oak, premium aging, and didn't release it for a long time. Very small batch, and made a big story around it and call it a milestone.
I mean, it shows in the texture of the wine. It shows in the length, in the complexity. It's dark, but it's powerful, but there's finesse into that with the long finish. I mean, I'm tasting it again for the first time since that very magic moment that we had, Mira and I. And it's everything, every bit of what I remember. Every single. So that was not a high of emotion back then, Mira. You'll be happy to hear that it's exactly how I remember it. Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
The T. So
that's so exciting.
I know I'm gonna wake up tomorrow morning and I'm gonna hear, is there any left? Is there any left?
Well, I'm really excited that you guys are fans, because it's great for us, and I'm really excited about the competition you're taking the wine to, and just putting it in front of some people that wouldn't have a chance to that I wouldn't have a chance to get in front of. And I think it's gonna be great for me. Just see how it goes.
I just can't wait, because these collectors are all familiar with Cheval Blanc. They all know about, and I can't wait to tell them the story about your inspiration. It will be absolutely epic to share that vision that you had and to have that in the bottle. So it's pretty special. Ted,
Thanks.
I'm grateful that you spent time with us.
Tell us. He wants to tell us.
One more thing I wanted to tell you about was so the price on a Chateau Cheval Blanc today, if you could get one, is $14,500 per bottle. 14,000.
You can buy out your inventory of Milestone Lab.
It's probably in US dollars, Ted. That's like 50 Canadian.
Yeah.
I mean, geez.
Yeah,
I love it. Mira, do you have any question for Ted?
Well, I just have to say, we're here busting myths about Canadian wine. I mean, you've busted the ageability one. You've busted the can we really ripen red wines and make them bold and luscious and amazing? I mean, holy cow. Just taste that Milestone if you don't think that's possible. Or any of the Riverstone wines, really. You guys make such gorgeous wines. And so many around in the Okanagan, too, that bust that myth. But then you also busted the price myth, because it's true. A lot of people think, Canadian wines are overpriced, And from everything I've tasted, you always have to know what to look for in a region and which producers have better value, maybe, and all this kind of stuff. But you're exactly right. I mean, this wine, even though it is priced over $100, I think a bottle now, $125.
Yes.
Yep. Bang on.
Yeah.
Every single penny. And I guarantee you put it side by side other international wines at that price point, and it is going to kick their butt.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt about that.
Yes. So amazing.
Thank you.
Yes. So
Dad, we are big fans. We're a big fan of what you do.
Promotion, you guys. Yeah. Hey, and sometime we'll three of us will sit down together, maybe some others, and we'll do a vertical with the 12 and the 15 together. Love to do that with you guys.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, you're on record. You are on record, Ted. I'm going to play it and send you clips once a week. I really appreciate your time, Ted. It's great to have you on. Thank you. It's a nice 2-hour show. And now we're a ton of people watching from back east. And this wine's going to be in their glass in less than a month, in 3 weeks' time. And I'm really excited to take that with us. Okay. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, guys.
Ted.
Appreciate it.
Have a wonderful
Bye-bye.
evening. Say hi.
Thanks. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
Cheers. Take care. Yes.
Not,
Oh my gosh.
not too bad
So
of an evening
excited
so
to
far.
taste that again. What's that?
Not too bad of an evening so far.
Oh, it's overwhelming. It's incredible. It's
It's
just
absolutely
so
freaking
special.
crazy. Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yes. And I'm so glad we're doing this live. So hey, we've got what, 2 more wines?
Well, we have a
with
bunch more, but
winemakers?
how about we? I haven't tasted the Cave Spring White. We're gonna do a full review on it. And tomorrow I'm gonna post some tasting notes and scores. But the nose is just so explosive.
So this is Cave Spring White. That is from what vintage, Carl?
This is 2014. The CSV Riesling. This is from the heart of the Cave Spring Vineyard in Niagara. It's
Okay.
a small batch of. There's only 20 rows, split in 3 different block. So I take notes because I was on the phone with Gabriel DeMarco yesterday morning, and he gave me a full rundown.
They're wine.
Yes, the Cave Spring winemaker who took over the original winemaker. So Gabriel has been part of the Cave Spring team since he got out of school, and now he took over the full winemaking program 5 or 6 years ago. And I can't even find my notes here. Okay, there you go. So it's the Lamont block, the Shoreline block, and the Home Farm block. So where it is split between 10 rows, 5 rows, and 5 rows. And every year from these very specific 20 rows, that's where they are sourcing this very small amount of the top-notch Riesling grape to make the CSV. So the Cave Spring Vineyard Riesling. 2014 was made 100% in stainless steel. And there's so much texture into that. There's exactly as you can expect, bright Riesling acidity, beautiful length, like lip smacking acidity. And it's not like if it was a warm vintage, neither of a rainy, like there's nothing special about the 2014 vintage. That's the good thing. That's what we're talking, Gabriel and I, yesterday morning. It's like, it's just a classic vintage. No heat dome, no extra rain, no extra sun. Nothing was special about the vintage, which make it a classic vintage and very good for the Riesling. And he said that's one of their best Riesling that they've made in 2014. So I can see that the balance between the sexiness of the residual sugar, well balanced with the tension and the acidity of the Home Farm block, just bring an amazing balance into that. So really good Riesling.
Spectacular. And you know
And
what's
2014, I bet you this is as almost like maybe another 10 years of aging. So for people who say Canadian wine can't age, you know what? Get out of here.
And you know, especially Riesling, like I have heard that Riesling, especially from Canada, from Niagara, it can age for a very long time with that.
Well, Riesling from around the world because of natural acidity in the grapes, right? So remember when I tap out?
We learned that the hard way with the Riesling, because we once tasted how many Rieslings in like 5 hours live?
I tapped out at 30 or 28. I couldn't do it after 28 bottle. I was like, my tongue was just in pain. So
it's such a gorgeous wine. I'm curious, what are we pairing that with at the tasting on the 25th? So
it's going to be in the flight, right?
Yes, with the seared scallop, spring pea puree, guanciale.
Exactly. It'll be done with seared scallop. The international comp will be a Palomino from the north, from Spain. A beautiful expression of a Spanish white that we're gonna have with
alongside with the whites. Yes.
Exactly.
It's not the
alongside.
Yeah.
You're right. Hey, do we
Getting-
have a winemaker in the house?
Yes, we have Richard De Silva in the house. Do you want me to send him upstairs?
Send him upstairs. Send him upstairs.
Okay. Okay.
I might
Richard,
have to reconfigure
gonna
the.
pass through here. See, there's Richard. He's heading upstairs. You see
Perfect.
that? And I'm assuming you have his wine up there, right? We're tasting.
I'm
the
assuming,
2012.
yes, the wine is right here. It's coming in. So now that's the next on deck. This is the very special 2012, the Silva Legado Merlot. Come on in, sir.
Sir, how's it going?
How's it going?
Good, good.
There you go.
Hello, everyone.
So Richard De Silva, there you go.
I'm gonna cuddle in with you.
I couldn't wait for that. I mean, I've been dreaming of that all day.
Start some rumors today.
Hey, okay, what we have here is something unique, something special.
Got to try a couple of those that are pretty spectacular.
Pretty spectacular. I mean, it was the idea all along, is to showcase Canadian wine lovers, how we can age our wine. It's been part of your philosophy in the very, very early stage, Rich, making wine who can age. And you always told me, every time we have a conversation, if there's a wine who's a little too soft, a little too approachable right on release, there's some things we're doing wrong, because this wine might not age properly, right?
Yeah, I think the key is that you need to have those foundation blocks, and the structure needs to be there to age over time. And certainly, if you're to bottle wine that's very soft and approachable now, it doesn't mean it doesn't have some aging potential. But my experience has been you kind of need that tannin and acidity, those blocks, to be there to age. And certainly, it's I think today a lot of wines are the way our viticulture and our winemaking has made wines far more approachable a lot sooner. But there's just something magic about having an aged wine to me personally. So it's
and we're seeing it, and I can't wait to dig into that lineup with you a little later. But at the core, you're a vigneron, you're a farmer. That's who you are. That's your family roots. When you farm, I mean, let's talk about Merlot, because I think one of the underrated secret in British Columbia, in the Okanagan Valley, is the potential of Merlot on the Naramata bench.
Yeah, correct. I think I've been very fortunate to be able to farm Merlot from a number of sites in the Okanagan, from the Osoyoos border to Summerland, and consistently, while barrel sampling, we just found that time and time again, the fruit that came from the Naramata just always shows something a bit more special. And that was not my first intuition, though. I wanted to believe Bordeaux grape varieties from down south, hotter. But Merlot is one of these varieties that's very heat sensitive, and as well as cold sensitive, and it really likes to be in that kind of Goldilocks situation, temperature a bit moderate. And with the lake effect of the Naramata bench, that lake effect is quite pronounced. And so what you see is a wine that has a bit more elegance, a little bit more structure, and yeah, I fought that for probably about 3-4 years, 5 years, and it just consistently, barrel after barrel, is just like, oh, because I had invested considerably in resources and putting more Merlot down south. And
I had to convince yourself that you did the right thing, right?
you can't believe in yourself, it's going to happen. And then just at the end of the day, to make these kind of wines, we need to certainly, go with what's the proof is in the barrel. So
absolutely. And so when you farm, there's a certain way that you farm your vineyard. I believe that you farm with the specific GDC, the Geneva.
We've done both. We do both with this. We do VSP, which is your vertical shoot positioning, and we have done the Geneva double curtain as well. But the philosophy of how we tend the vineyard is quite universal between both sides. We strip our leaves fully during flower set, which is a very unique technique to us, in that we do this in June.
Yep.
And so these grapes get developed under full intense UV light right from inception through the first berry set and all that. So that's common in both the Geneva Delicard and the VSP that we train. But what it does, it provides a really robust wine, a lot of skin tannin, lots of a higher concentration of skin to juice because those skins
The
are
ratio.
bigger. Yeah, the ratio. And so yeah, I mean the proof's in the wine, I suppose. So this is the very first year we came out with Legato, and 12 was a magical vintage for us. And I think that this is one of those ones I don't know if I'll take full credit for. It was a bit of a stroke of good luck, but
I don't believe in luck.
I you know, if you farm long enough, you almost have to believe in it sometimes.
So Ted, just before Ted was talking about 2012 was a really good growing season. So Mother Nature provided a ton of good stuff for that year.
Yeah, I think the neat thing about 12 was it was a balanced year. It wasn't extreme. It was just a great, very consistent, growing season. It afforded us some a little longer, and especially with Merlot, to have wine like this, it needs to have those. It doesn't really like those kind of spikes of either cold or hot. It wants that Goldilocks, and yeah, it
doesn't like to be rushed. Like slow, consistent growth.
Specifically with this, I mean, I find that my Pinot Noir, for example, that we do is far more resilient, and can take those high lows, which is counterintuitive. Merlot, not so much, which is
I mean, this is spectacular, and tasting that there's an elegance into that. It's not a bomb. It's not but there's a beautiful elegance and complexity. This has still a lot of life.
It's one of those wines that really, when you in retrospect, you look at it and go like, the tannin still feels fairly tight in it. The acidity is just balanced in it. I think probably, it probably still has some time to peak yet, which is, to me, it's one of the wines I keep opening it up and I'm just like, how do I continue to produce that?
Yeah.
Like, it's 2012 from BC. You sort of see a little bit of the color, a little bit of a brick thing to it, but it's not. I don't see like it's just it has a nice aged kind of rim to it. So yeah, I think there's
just starting to turn a little bit of brick hole at the very, very top.
But the tannin, it's still grippy. It's still, and for Merlot, that's fascinating. So I think the takeaway Cole's notes on it is that we have the uniqueness about the Okanagan is we have these pockets of these microclimates, and as we evolve and as we become better acquainted with our terroir, you'll start seeing some of us trying to kind of put that little focus into these micro terroirs and little pockets and flesh out possibilities like this, because that's a special wine. And I think for me, it's not because I have any magic skills that way. It's just that it's the understanding how to farm it, and there's certainly a growing group of those that are fantastic.
And I think that when we had that explosion in the valley where every single square inch got bought and planted across, I think we didn't made ourselves a favor, because we planted some stuff at the wrong place. And it become pretty obvious now down the road when we're looking at what we're facing now. I don't want to go to a bad rabbit hole, but there's something that you just mentioned that it struck me. Finding the right pocket for the right grape varietal is such a key in a young in a young region.
Yeah, I always joke, you'll have these sites that were empty for decades, and I always say, look, you didn't discover something that a Portuguese farmer missed somehow, because if you could grow a tree on it and make some fruit on it, we would have done it. And so you get to do like, look at this plot, it's empty, and it's like it's in this region, and you're like, yeah, there's a reason why it's got no fruit on it, but
by any means, buy it.
Certainly, I've had counterparts that are now discovering that unfortunate reality. But I always say, just ask your fellow Portuguese farmer.
Why you guys haven't planted anything?
Farmed it, and we'll be like, yeah, because it doesn't work. And so, Yeah, I think that knowledge, though, I think if you look at it from a historical perspective, in the Okanagan, to craft these kind of wines in 2012 Legato, you need time. You need more than 20 years of experience. Our best wines are yet to come because we're building that knowledge and that foundation that we're building right now. Like you're part of that part, that history. And when you think of the average winery in BC is under 25 years old, there's a lot of a learning curve because it takes time. That's just the way it is. So
you're writing a chapter where we're not writing the whole history here. It's a small chapter, and I believe that there's new stuff coming up with De Silva, in the sense that across last year you decided to expand your vineyard holding right across the street from the winery.
So correct. So we're going to be doing the lower part near the winery part. We'll be doing Melon de Bourgogne. We're going to do Albarino. I love Melon de Bourgogne. Those of you that are familiar with like the Muscadet region of Loire, I love those wines.
With muscle.
That and Chenin Blanc, as everybody knows, is my favorite. And so then on the top hillside, as you look out of the front winery door, will be Merlot again, because I want to double down on it, because again, it just does well, and the proof's in this
bottle. You can see it right in this glass. Richard, I mean, you're traveling with us. You're going to be in Toronto presenting this very wine to our guests at the Vintage Conservatory. Elia Senchuk was on with us earlier, also presenting a 2012 that you're going to have in your glass right after that.
Cheers to Elias and everyone out there.
Thank you. So we're going to be traveling together at the end of the month and sharing all of these wines with our guests in Toronto. Richard, thanks for being here. Okay,
cheers, everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers.
There you go.
So much. Awesome. Hey.
I don't look that small again.
This is pretty special stuff, and it's so special to have the Merlot from the Ramada Bench, because it is one of those secrets that we discovered in the last couple of years that many people in the know about. The Merlot, the
crown jewel of Merlot in BC, definitely. I mean, yeah, and this bottle is really freaking special. I mean, that's what we have in front of us. A bunch of special wines. I mean,
very special wines. And Simon, we were just talking about Cape Spring before this, and we missed. I was chatting with Simon in the comments. Simon is going to join us at the conservatory. The event sold out in about 10 minutes before it was actually announced, so we never had a chance to invite all our members, but we had sent out a save the date, and so people who reached out to us after that and said, I really want a spot, we did save those spots. We have 2 more spots, I believe, for members now. And so if anyone's interested in joining us in Toronto on the 25th of April to taste these wines in real life alongside international icons, including at the dessert, a 1988, what, Carl?
Chateau d'Yquem, one of the Grand Cru Classé of Bordeaux, one of the most iconic wine in the world, 1988 vintage. So this is something exciting.
So what's is really cool too. Like, wine is such a beautiful way to celebrate, and wineries, we're just so blessed to have them right here in our backyard. These world-class, gorgeous wineries. Simon is going to come to the tasting in Toronto with us, taste that 2014 Cave Spring, and guess what? They're getting married there this fall.
No way!
Spring.
Are you kidding me?
So it's pretty.
That is
cool.
Freaking awesome!
Yes.
Woohoo! Hey, cheers to that! Cheers to that, Simon.
Yeah.
Boom! Cheers! This is Cave Spring in my glass right now, and so happy to hear. This is awesome. And talking about. Can I tell you? Okay, I'll be open and vulnerable with you right now, and with all of you who are listening. I was a little stressed. I was a little not stressed, but worried. of when you put something together like that with someone like Mark Nadeau, who has an international background and a knowledge of wine, who is pretty unparalleled. I have a tremendous respect for Mark Nadeau, owner of l'Académie du Vin, his knowledge. And when he tasked me to put together 10 wines from Canada that will represent what we do very well, I said, of course I can do it. So here is my lineup. But to have this in front of me tonight and to have the confirmation that we've selected the right thing makes me feel pretty darn good about what we've done. So yes, I'm ready to fly out. Now I know that 100% of these bottles are going to blow people's socks off. So
amazing.
yes.
And we still have 3 to taste live with you. We're going to go a little bit faster.
Not 3, but 2.
Oh, 2, right, because one didn't make it here in the mail. Okay, so let's do the Painted Rock, because we have John Skinner who can join us for 15 minutes to
how about we do the Mirabelle first, okay? And after that, we can put the interview with John, and I can bring the stuff downstairs and start tasting with our guest. So Mirabelle, it's a small, tiny estate to produce 1,200 cases. 1,200 to 2,000 cases at the very most every year, exclusively Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, a rosé and a sparkling, all made from Pinot Noir or Chardonnay. Doug and Donna are a very good friend with Mark in Toronto, and he said, Carl, you need to go there. You need to taste that. You need to meet with them. They are amazing people, and their wines are splendid. So I went there earlier this week. We tasted the 2016 to 2019 Pinot Noir Reserve. It was off the chart. And I have with me the 2015 Reserve, which is their first ever wine that they've made under their own label at Mirabelle Vineyard on the East Kelowna slope. So that's what we have here. I haven't had a sip yet.
Ooh, let's see. And we've never tasted Mirabelle. I mean, other than Carl 2 days ago went to the winery and tasted these wines side by side. But
this is much richer, much bolder than we have with the Pinot Noir from the St. David's Bench in Ontario. Modern style of Pinot Noir, bold and rich. I mean, Doug was worried. He said, yeah, you know what? It's a 15's a vintage age variation. I'm not sure. This is bang on. This is pure. This is rich fruit. This wine has not fall off the cliff. This is shown very well. It's a little bit more of a warmer climate type. It's the vintage. It's 2015, so bold and rich, delicious.
Amazing.
And and the last one is the Painted Rock. I mean, we'll have. Right. I was with John Skinner, the propriétaire owner at Painted Rock here in the Scaha Bench earlier this afternoon. Painted Rock Cabernet Franc. It's a beautiful expression of seductive finesse with some power, but an elegance that really attract people overseas. The European really enjoy his Cabernet Franc. I love the frame of that wine. This is solid. This is going to go for another 10 years. No issue about that. I tasted it earlier. I'm like, wow, this is still a baby, for God's sake. So for people who are saying that our wine can age, this is 10 years old, and it's just getting started.
Is this your first, second time tasting this wine? Third time? Second time.
An explosion of minerality past the mid palate. Beautiful tannin, spicy finish. Almost most on dark fruit, mocha, chocolate, pepper.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Sounds
Fantastic.
amazing.
This is Painted Rock, never disappointed, and I'm not. It is exactly what I was expecting.
Amazing.
Here
Amazing.
you go.
So let's jump in and meet John. This is John Skinner, owner at and founder, importantly. John has, I gotta say, I mean, he's been a champion for Canadian wine for quite some time. And his philosophy has always been the rising tide lifts all boats. And so he's very much about not just my wines are, you know, world class, but let's make sure as many people who have world class wines around here, we get that message out because it just helps all of us. And I love that philosophy. And he's done so much to draw attention on an international scale to what can be done here in BC. So this is John Skinner.
There you go. Big stuff. We're talking iconic at its best. I am with John Skinner, owner, proprietor of Painted Rock Winery on the Skaha Bench in British Columbia. John, good evening. Thanks for joining me.
Carl, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
So what we're doing something pretty special with a good friend of yours back in Ontario. So Mark Nadeau at l'Académie du Vin and Carl's Wine Club, we've put together that back vintage tasting that is going to be put together on April the 25th. But tonight it's the free tasting. I have the privilege to taste all of these wines side by side, and we have selected from you, John. It's the 2014 Cabernet Franc. I mean, how was 2014 for you with your recollection? I know you've been a busy man in the last 15 years, but what's 2014 for you?
Do you know what? 2014 was quite a fabulous vintage. It was very warm. It interestingly, up through the end of, I mean, we keep records of these, and it's imperative because what we try to do is compare vintage over vintage and see what the nuances are. And we're very analytical about this. That's the journey. This is science. It's passion and such, but it's science too. So it really ticked all the boxes. It was a good vintage. Interestingly enough, our first vintage was in 2007. Our first vintage of Cabernet Franc was in 2013 because the vines needed maturation, and the Cabernet Franc was always a part of our Red Icon blend, and it introduced some beautiful acidity and some bright aromatics, but it wasn't a worthy standalone varietal. And then all of a sudden 2013 came along, and then 2014 came along, and that was the first vintage that, ironically, I took to Europe. And it's opened some doors for us that it was an eye-opener. I'd been in Europe for a few years with Mark Nadeau. Mark Nadeau is probably the single biggest independent champion of Canadian wine imaginable. Like he is. I mean,
his knowledge about the wines are unparalleled.
Knowledge, network, generosity. Like this guy has opened doors for me and our community better than any single person. And I hold him in the highest respect. And I mean, that's how I got into 6-7 Pall Mall. That's how I got to meet Steven Spurrier. That's how I mean, wow.
I mean, that's the door. That's the hallway to success right there in Europe. When you start with the crown jewel of London, I mean, wow.
How do you get into decanter and get, like we won a decanter wine of the year in 2020, our 2017 Red Icon. How would we have even got in front of them had I not met Mark, met Steven Spurrier, met these people? Like it just was a remarkably efficient and generous experience, and it's helped Canadian wine because we went from being Canadian wine, are you ice wine, to hey, this is something special. And that gets me back to the Cabernet Franc. When I got to Europe, so all of a sudden I get into Europe and I meet Steven Spurrier and so and Mark, and that wine, I didn't realize, one thing that I really learned when you go to Europe is don't sell the wine, pour it and listen. You're going to find out a lot more because different nations have different palates, have different preferences, have different there was one time when I had this great opportunity to get into Le Chapon Fin, okay, in Bordeaux, as the biggest, best restaurant, best wine list in Bordeaux, and I've got 5 wines in my wine bag, and they're all open, and I have this really special opportunity to be able to taste with the chef sommelier. They've got 5 sommeliers there, and we went through the first 4, and he looked at me and he said, "These wines are extraordinary. I'm going to take them all." And my jaw dropped. I thought, wow, this is, and it had been our Merlot, our Syrah, our Red Icon blend, and our Cabernet Sauvignon. And I said, "Oh, hold on. There's a 5th one you haven't tried yet." And he said, "Oh, what's that?" And I said, "It's my Cabernet Franc." And he said, "Oh, I've got to stop you there. We will only buy Cabernet Franc from 4 different regions because it has to have bright acidity, and we just don't have any interest." And I said, "We happen to be in North America and we're the same coast as California, but we're north. We have acidity. I mean, it's the differentiation between warm days and cool nights, and we
can supply acidity for the whole world."
Well, you know what? So he said, "Okay, I said, "Would you just indulge me?" And he said, "Sure, why not?" He was a really, really nice guy. So I have this opportunity. I've got the bottle open and I'm flying out in 3 hours. So I pour him like a half a glass, and he's got this big glass, and he's just living with it. All of his other somms are out in the restaurant. He's living with it for the longest 5 minutes of my life. He finally takes a sip and he said, "We just found our 5th region."
Wow.
Isn't
that's
that
amazing?
That was probably one of the most shockingly gratifying moments that I've ever experienced in the industry, because we were I mean, it's Bordeaux. It's the #1 restaurant in Bordeaux, and they want to carry our wine. That is really, really flattering.
Well,
And
we're
for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. That's an outstanding story. And for us, like when I was looking to put that lineup together, to be on the stage with all of these collectors in Toronto, and we're looking about different grape varietals and the whole thing. And I'm like, okay, Ontario are so known for their Cabernet Franc, but I want to flip that around. And when we talk to each other and we're talking about the Red Icon, it was like, you said, no, Carl, let's do the Cab Franc. And I know, like, you know exactly where to go about that, because the people who collect international wines will connect with that wine. That's for sure.
Contextually, that's what I wanted to do. Because I think we're doing something. If this really demonstrates the bright acidity in such a flattering way, to me, it's something that I would go to. I mean, I'm really proud of our Syrah and the other wines, but this one in particular, if it stands out to the palates in Bordeaux, and it's at the Clove Club in London, these are the most knowledgeable wine people on the planet, and they really like it, and that just volumes. So as I said, pour it, don't sell it. Just get it in front of them, and it's really satisfying. For me, the goal is, at 20 years old now, our vineyard is really starting. The consistency is amazing, because if you think about it, we planted in 2005, and the roots are going down. Like we're on a thick, deep bench of alluvial silt that goes down forever. So our roots are going down, and the flavor profiles are evolving over time. Well, now 20-year-old plants, it's really consistent. It's really, really consistent, and it's reliable, but it's getting better. And that's something people ask me, "What's your best vintage?" And I said, the next one. Like, it's just maturation and knowledge. I've hired, the good fortune, I've been working with Alain Sutre from Bordeaux since day one, and he oversees everything that we do. He consults to some of the top wineries in the world, and is
he still involved with Painted Rock? The guy is still coming a couple times a year, and he's still involved.
He was there a week and a half ago, and what I did was he's so impactful. Has been so impactful to Painted Rock. I've introduced him to Poplar Grove. I've introduced him to a number, because what I'm able to do, I'm not competing with my neighbors. What I'm able to do is I'm able to defray the costs of bringing him over, but he's making our industry better.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
why not? Like it's just a no-brainer. He's generous and smart. Nobody owns my terroir. I don't own there. So let's just play to our strengths, do what we do best. But then I'm able to bring him over, and he's, like I said, he's over around 5 times a year.
Okay.
Does our blending, but he not only does our blending and oversees the vineyard, he oversees everything, but he teaches. So my staff have had 20 years working with one of the top consultants in the world. You think Gabe Reese is a good winemaker? Holy mackerel. He's been doing these. When we do the blending, it's me, Gabe, and Alan, and it has been for 20 years now. And wow, what an experience, because it's never been do this. It's been let's do this because of this. And then the next year when you do it, you'll say, remember when we had to tweak that Merlot? It was a little bright. What did we do on that? And I said, we added a couple drops of Arabic gum. He said, what do you notice of the Merlot this year? And I said, well, it's the tannins are a little abrasive. And he said, yeah. What do you mean abrasive? You can't tell him it's abrasive. You have to tell him, is it 10% the way through, 30% the way through, 70% the way through, because there's a different remedy for every one. Well, Gabe knows if it's 10, it's this, if it's 20, it's this, if it's 50, it's this. Holy mackerel.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, it's so fun to do that. But that comes back to Alain's generosity. And he is making our industry better because he's building the fabric of our community and not just telling him what to, like this whole idea of not telling him what to do. And Gabe is he has a thirst for knowledge that is just amazing. And it's going to do our industry very well.
You know what? I had a conversation with Thomas Batchelder last week, and he's speaking the exact same language that you're speaking. I mean, it's all about raising the tide. So all the boats are going higher and higher. Everyone wins. And I told the same thing to Thomas. I said, you speak the same language that John is speaking. So
you know what?
That's
why. The world of Thomas. No, he's a great ambassador for Canadian wine, and I love, when we get to these places like Canada House in London, it's the camaraderie is wonderful, and nobody's poking fingers at one another. You know what? It's collaborative, it's smart, it's play to your strengths, and I prefer opening the door for my peers, not closing, and that's just, I think Canadian wine in a number of years, we are really getting on radars now, and it was a difficult journey at the very beginning, but now we're in the US. We're in really, really top markets. We're just getting into Singapore now, and I love it. We're in China. We're in Japan.
I love Singapore. I spent some time there last year. It's such a beautiful market.
You know what? Jancis Robinson's right-hand man, Richard Hemming, runs 67 Pall Mall in. So it's 1 degree of separation. Where did I meet Richard Hemming? I met him in London through Mark Nadeau. In Singapore now, Richard Hemming. Like, it's 1 degree of separation. But these people, the same thing. They're generous. They know that we wear our hearts on our sleeves. We're trying to do, my mandate is I will never cut a corner. And we're aimed as highly as possible. I want to compete with the best wines in the world. I'm a proud Canadian, but it behooves us to be out there, getting on, make the effort. Don't expect people to come and find us. Get on a plane and go to Singapore and sit down. So I'm going to be bringing some of my peers. I'm going to invite some of my peers. We're going to go to Singapore with maybe 8 or 10 wineries, and let's show them what we're doing, because we got a broad spectrum of different opportunities. I'd love to probably be calling Thomas. Love to have him come. Those are the ambassadors. Really, we got a good crew.
Oh, see, like the lineup that I have behind me, right? Cave Spring, who's been with Cave Spring with Len Penichetti and stuff. They've built. They are from the foundation of the Ontario wine industry. Yeah. We have some new rock stars like Leading Post who are knocking at the door. Elias Sanchuk is such a talented. So we're blessed to have an outstanding lineup here that we put together, Mark and I. And hey, last question. What's your projection? How many more years do you think that still has in it? Because that's going to be open, and I'm going to taste that very soon.
Oh, I'm really excited because, contextually, the Cabernet Franc is going to be different from a cellaring standpoint. But we just opened our first vintage of the Syrah about 2 weeks ago and hadn't had it for quite some time. And everybody at the table said this has at least another 10 years. So I would say quite easily that's got some time left. That's got, and that was the 7. So I think, you know, these are, we don't crop heavily. It's always been very measured, and this is a lands thing. You know, we're probably capable at the time of producing 5.5 tons an acre. And I think with that Cabernet Franc, it's probably 3.5, because that's best. And you drop the fruit, you do what's necessary to make the best product. And it's eminently more cellarable. And I'm really curious to hear how you like it, because
you're gonna hear from me tomorrow. I'm gonna have a full tasting notes for you. That's gonna be all over to social media. I'm excited. Everything's gonna be tasted tonight. And just guess what? If you have, oh no, you're in Vancouver. I was just about to say you should come after the tasting tonight, because all these wines are going to be open. So
I would have loved to have done that. Next time. That's
you have a great evening, John. Thanks again for being part of that, and I appreciate your time tremendously. Thank you very much.
Let me say thanks to you. Like you're a real good force of good in this industry, and I sincerely appreciate everything that you're doing for us. Thanks, man.
Thank you, John. Okay. Have a good one. Thanks.
Haha, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I can't wait to get that Cab Franc in my glass. Do you have it up there?
Oh, no, not up there. It's now downstairs. I brought everything down because we have some special guests at home.
Lots of glasses that are empty. So I need some more of these gorgeous back vintages that definitely show us that not only can Canadian wines age, but they can age at a world-class wow factor level. It is so fantastic.
It's mind-boggling. I feel so ready and so excited to take the plane for Toronto and to pour that for all of these people at the Vintage Conservatory and to show all of these collectors how beautifully these wines can age. I mean, it's incredible. What we have in our glasses tonight, it's something else.
Very something else. Very excited to retaste some of these that, even just one sip and you know it's a wow. So now we can sit for a few hours and chat about it, basically. That's what the kind of wines these are. I mean, these are the wines that any one of these 9 wines that we are, 9 that we opened tonight, right? Yep. And chatted with winemakers. Any one of these are the kind of wine that when you open it, you just want to sit with that wine for hours, because these are wow wines. You barely even want food around because you want to focus on the wine. You want to experience that wine. And yeah, they're spectacular. So
I went back to the sparkling, the découpement parcellaire.
That was the first wine of the evening, and boy, was it a wow wine. Absolutely. You guys, if you're still listening, this means you know what we're talking about, because this is what hooks you on wine as a hobby, as a passion, right? Is falling in love. Like, that's how I felt when I had that sparkling that you just tasted there again.
It's incredible. Oh man, that tastes good. Okay, so hey,
I'm in love with this wine. Great.
So that was a lineup of 9 wines from all over the country, from Nova Scotia to Niagara-on-the-Lake, Niagara Escarpment, Niagara, almost Hamilton. There you go. And driving all the way and getting all the way to BC, from Kelowna, Naramata Bench here, East Kelowna Slope, Skaha Bench, and we have the south of the Okanagan with the Milestone and Riverstone. So from not every single, but like multiple different areas in the country, we have shown tonight that the level of ageability of what we do is it's unparalleled. It's amazing. So I'm going to go put some tasting notes down. I'm going to go score all of these. And follow our social media over the weekend. It's going to be all out there. And yeah, I can't wait. Like, there's some outstanding wines. And so far, we had our wine of the year last year, right? This is about the very last year in the lineup. One of the most special textural wine of that we love with the Spadefoot Toad Summerhill. An incredible Laurie, 12 years old, some 18-year-old white. But this from Nova Scotia, absolutely blow my socks off. This is something incredible. Découpement parcellaire, Blanc de Blanc, the 2017 vintage from Benjamin Bridge. It's a stunner, absolute stunner. So stay tuned. I'm going to give you much more detail on all of these wines in the next couple of days. So I hope everyone enjoyed that night. I hope everyone enjoyed the show. We're going to clip that down for each and every wine, but thank you, everyone, Canadian wine lovers, Carl's Wine Club members across the country. Mira Boucher, thanks to you for being the amazing, perfect partner who keeps me on track and put everything together in the background. Thank you so much. Thanks for Richard De Silva to be sitting here.
This is your secret genius, Carl, is pulling together this many phenomenal wines, curating them for us, and also the stories with the winemakers, drawing out those stories. I think that's what's so special, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. See you next time.
Cheers. Cheers, cheers, cheers.
Are we going to get this on?
I know. That's what I was trying to do. Yeah, there you go.